Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for coming to my talk about JA3 and JA4. My name is Miloslav. I'm currently working as the lead application security architect at Sandoz, and this is how good I looked before I started dealing with bots and their fingerprints. Throughout the presentation, I will be sharing some additional resources with you, mostly linked using a QR code. So if you are interested, please keep your mobile phones handy and ready as we will go through that presentation. Here is an example. This is my LinkedIn. If you'd like to connect, you're welcome. Moving on. So it is time to talk about the clients and the servers. As you know, the internet works on the client-server architecture, meaning we have servers that are serving content to whomever comes across, connects the clients. And there is a natural tension when establishing this relationship. The clients might want to stay anonymous, while the servers need to identify clients for various purposes, serving the correct content or whatnot. Currently, in this technological landscape, it is a cat-and-mouse game, where it's not really exactly solved how all servers could identify all clients, or how all clients could indefinitely stay anonymous. It is really no clear-cut solution yet. So we will have to figure out various methods, tricks, and tips how to achieve one or the other. But please do remember that both sides have merit here. There are various properties that might be helpful in several cases that are not really wanted in the other. Okay. You would also know that on the internet, a lot of traffic comes from automated sources, robots, clients, and whatnot. And this traffic is not always nice. There are multiple cases of unpleasant traffic that we would like to avoid, such as automated attacks, especially WordPress. As you perhaps know, if you put a WordPress site up on the public internet, you can count 30 seconds before a third attempt of compromising it. But that's not all. Today is very modern to scrape sites for each and every content, to train your own LLM. Yes, I've managed to put AI in the talk at least a bit. And there are just other cases like the plain old load, just the volume of the requests that these bots are able to provide dramatically outpaces what the humans can do. So the site might back up under the distributed denial of service. So I hope I've convinced you that not all bots are nice, and we should be doing something about it if needed. So the first idea is to try and identify the bots in the traffic, to have a different rule set for humans and different rule set for bots. And today we are taking a look at the JA3 method. So JA3, what it stands for, is actually the initials of the authors. So we have, timeline still, okay. So the JA3 is a TLS fingerprinting method, and the first occurrence of this idea was formulated in 2015. And it took approximately 2 years to create this into a product, JA3, which we'll cover shortly. And by shortly, I mean right now. So as I mentioned, JA3 is the shorthand of the initials of its creators, who are John Althouse, Jeff Atkinson, and Josh Atkins. So that's how you get the JA3. These three created this method while they were working at Salesforce. So I guess, thank you, Salesforce. And here is the original blog post that announced this method to the wider world, if you would like a trip down the memory lane for a bit of internet history. All right. So how does it work? This is a TLS client fingerprinting method. So we would need to use the TLS properties, or SSL. You probably know that TLS is a successor of the SSL method. Today, you don't really use SSL, and you can use these methods to encrypt traffic on the internet modes, notably in the HTTPS. Right, so these are pretty much the same. So what do? We have the client, we have the server, and they want to talk to each other. First, we need to establish a connection. The TLS tunnel is not really dependent on the connection. You can have it upon many different types of connections, so be it TCP connection, UDP connection, or quick. Doesn't really matter. We can do TLS afterwards. First, the client starts with the client hello. The server replies with a server hello and a certificate. Usually, I know, if you dig down deep into the RFCs, this is not always the case, but for simplicity's sake. Then they need to do the cryptographic dance. They will need to figure out the capabilities they have to agree on a cipher to use some kind of variant of Diffie-Hellman or other key exchange protocol to establish a common cryptographic ground, to agree on a master password, and then we can go with the encrypted traffic. All right, so this is what we are working with. This is the TLS handshake, so to speak. The idea is to fingerprint the clients based on this client hello. And since this client hello doesn't depend upon any server capabilities, we hope that it will be consistent when dealing with multiple different versions of the server. So that is what we will focus on. And now the question, how does a client hello look like? Well, I can tell you, it looks like this. So have you ever seen a client hello? Here it is. All right, so this is not really readable, is it? By the looks on your face, I'm not seeing you blurting out all of the extensions, so I take that as a no. And it's not easy to parse. This is a result of approximately 40 years of effort and approximately 10,000 RFCs. And I'm not saying that you need to know 10,000 RFCs to parse this. Think about it like the Chinese language. The Chinese language has how many characters? Way too many. You need approximately a subset, a small subset, to carry a normal conversation. But you still need to be aware of the particularities to somehow know edge cases, to handle the edge cases. As we mentioned, these robots, they will come to your site and they will throw trash and dirt on it. If you are not ready for that, and your parser is not ready for these special edge cases, the parser might fail and the site might be down. Not even a distributed denial of service, just plain old denial of service. It is very hard to get this exactly right, and I really recommend to use some of the existing stacks to work with these technologies, as it's not complicated but complex. So if you would like to write your own, well, really, good luck. Good luck, it's not easy. So looking at this picture, you'll probably notice the 2 bytes that are highlighted here. Does anybody have a guess what these 2 bytes are? Would you believe me if I told you this is the TLS version used? It naturally follows. No? So this is the TLS version. And to showcase how difficult parsing of this object is, let's talk about the TLS versions, which sound simple enough, right? There are a couple of TLS versions, 1.0, 1.2, 1.3. One of them should be somehow represented by this number. So you know this too, right? Definitely. Come on, some more notes, right? This is Wireshark, you know this. Yeah, exactly. So the issue with the TLS version is that we have 3 conflicted values in one client hello. So first, we start with the base value that we have in the outermost layer. This value, as far as I know, is only concerned in differentiating between SSL and TLS. Here, TLS 1.0 at the top, approximately. It is somewhat readable. Well, nothing I can do about it now anyway, so I hope it's good enough. Then we go slightly deeper into the client hello part of the message, where we have the version TLS 1.2. And as you can read under it, this is actually a legacy field and shouldn't be used, because they've realized that, okay, we've introduced this for TLS 1.2 and we'd like to upgrade to 1.3. But we actually worry that changing this value might break some of the older clients. So let's keep this value as is, and let's hide the real TLS version in an extension, approximately here. So there is a dedicated extension that should carry the TLS versions. And you can also see that there are 2 of them, TLS 1.2, 1.3. So the conclusion is there is no TLS version here in this packet. The real TLS version that is being performed is the one that is agreed on between the server and the client. So now you have 2 practical options. Practical option number 1 is to take a look at what the server will respond with to use then in your calculation. Or practical version number 2, just saying, hey, this is about the clients anyway, so I will take the highest version available and go with it. Guess which option I've picked. A word on the extensions also. These extensions are intended to extend the capabilities of TLS And they follow a very simple format. You have an ID, 2 bytes. You have a length of the data in the extension, also 2 bytes. And then you have just completely random data. And this is great because the server can go through the list of the extensions, picking out only those extensions which the server can handle and discarding the rest. Remember this? We will come back to this later at one point. Also notable that in Wireshark we already have the hashes, as you can see here at the bottom. This was actually my reference implementation when I was implementing these methods for myself. And we have both the JA3 and the JA4. And we also have these longer versions of the hashes. These are also quite useful, and I will get them in a couple of minutes. Just wanted to showcase this right now. Okay, I think we've covered everything that is to see here. Moving on. The problems don't end there. As the standards move forward and evolve, from March 2026, the new encrypted client hello, which encrypts the client hello. How they did it? They've added an extension. You do recall the extensions. So the idea is that you can take any of the extensions and stuff them into this new extension that will be then encrypted. Do you then omit those old extensions from the client hello? No, you keep them there with bogus data because that will be too simple. And the idea is that a good server will come, identify the new encrypted client hello extension, decrypt its contents, and then put those contents back to override the values that are bogus in the original client hello. And so that the client has the option of seeing which versions of the client hello the server is responding to either abort or continue if it's happy with the encrypted client hello interpretation. We don't need to go too deep into this, but this is very unpleasant when you have solutions that are based on monitoring the traffic, because you will somehow need to decrypt this. So deep packet inspection is one thing, but this is yet another mechanism to keep track of. So if you are using such ID as IPS, beware. I've written an article about this. So if you are interested in some more details about the encrypted client hello, here's the link to that. I don't blame you. It is complicated. Okay, so now we've extracted all the data that we need, so we can put them to the algorithm. The algorithm is simple. This is a Python implementation. We will take a couple of properties, like the TLS version, the ciphers, which are identified by the integers, no contents, some elliptic curves, point formats, whatever that is. And we put them all together in a nice string representation. Then we run it through MD5. And if you recall on the Wireshark screenshot slide, we don't have to do this last step with the MD5. And sometimes it's really useful to keep all of these values in the plane so that you can compare various hashes to see in which methods and exact parameters they differ. If you are trying to do something slightly more advanced with this, it is useful, it is commonly used. So sometimes you will see these long versions of the hashes, and sometimes you will see these MD5 hashes for JA3. Okay, so where we are. Back, I forgot to tell you something here. So, what is missing from this slide? Sorting. None of these are sorted. So there is a natural sorting method for each and every one of these because we are taking integers. And especially the extensions, we are taking the identifiers, which are normal integers. So we will think that we will get some more stable results by sorting it, but then you also lose some information when you are sorting the extensions because some clients might pick different order for these extensions for unknown reasons. Notably, these are not sorted, and this is a problem because later the standards have evolved and people started throwing wrenches into this. The first one was Greece, which I'll talk about in a moment, And the second one is really closely related to it, and it's a feature in our favorite web browser, Chrome, where Google, in their infinite wisdom, realized that their RFC specifying this doesn't require any particular order of the extensions. So what they did, they've started permutating the extensions in the Chrome. Why? The official reason is that this strengthens the ecosystem and makes it more resilient by forcing the various clients and server to write proper specification related. Look, I have to say that Google has motivation to keep some of the bots running and non-identifiable. Conversely, the same reasoning, and it was done by same people, was applied for this grease thingy, which I'll be showcasing right now. So instead of fixing all of these, the authors decided to move on with a new version, and we'll get to that shortly. So let me just finish the grease, and let's go there. So grease stands for generate random extensions and sustain extensibility. The reasoning is exactly the same. To strengthen the ecosystems, we will be throwing dirt at the servers. This time the dirt looks like this. These are reserved values for pretty much anything you can use, double ints, the numbers that you can see in various bits and pieces of these RFCs, headers, protocols, and whatnot. So the idea is if you encounter one of these values, it should be correctly parsed, but otherwise discard it. Serves no other practical reason at all. So yeah, these are greased values, and this is a simple fix. Like you have a list of values, you just compare it against this list, throw out the values that are wrong, and go on. But the authors decided to completely do the scheme, and now we have JA4 plus. Why plus? Because it's not a single method, but it's actually a suite of hashes. And we have various other methods for fingerprinting various other objects, such as the server side. We can now try and fingerprint the server hello. We have maybe the HTTP headers, which we can take a look at what the client is exactly doing once the SSL tunnel is established. We also can fingerprint SSH for reasons. If you have trouble with that, you might try this. So now for the question on everybody's mind, the authors. We have still John Althouse, Jeff Atkinson, Josh Atkins, and now drumroll please for Joshua Alexander. So if your name is right, maybe you too can be in the next iteration of this technology. There are, of course, many other authors which are all properly credited, but I'm glad to see that the authors of this have some sense of humor, and hopefully they will keep this up. This repository is a really good source for various JA4 related information, and I highly recommend checking it out. Still no one, okay. So, what is the difference? I didn't manage to create a better picture than the authors, so I'm stealing this one. We have now 3 parts for the hash. We are still talking about the basic SSL TLS fingerprinting mechanism, not one of these new fancy methods for reasons that will be obvious shortly. And in the first part, we have various bits and pieces from the client hello. First, is it a TCP, QUIG, or perhaps UDP? Simple letter, simple enough. Then TLS version 1.2, 1.3, etc. Then we have SNI. SNI stands for server name identification, and it's another one of these extensions that we've talked about previously. This time it tells the server, hey, if you have multiple domains on this one IP, I'm intending to connect to this domain. So please take care of that. Or if there is no SNI at all and you are connecting directly to an IP address, we are able to reflect that too. Then we have the counts, the number of cipher suites, and the number of extension. And then we have something called ALPN, which stands for Application Layer Protocol Negotiation, which is a hint again to the server saying, hey, okay, after we are done with this TLS tunneling business, I want to talk to in HTTP too. So if you want to do something about it, now is your chance, I told you. Then we have the hashes. In the second part, we are hashing the order of the cipher suites, this time upgraded to SHA 256. And this time they are sorted. Great. In the last part, we have the extensions sorted, great, by these IDs that we've talked about previously, and signature algorithms in the order they appear explicitly mentioned that they are not sorting this. I mean, I think it's a matter of time before somebody realizes that we can just run permutations on these, right? To interfere with this. Why would they do it? I actually reached out to John Atkins, the original author, asking why, and I received no response. So I did try to bring you the newest and latest information, but I failed, and I'm sorry. Okay, so this method really took off, and all of the big providers started implementing it. So if you'd like to use it, here's how to do it. If you are using one of the big providers like Cloudflare and whatnot, they all have them. Simple as. You just ask them, maybe it will be in the greatest and bestest and most expensive tiers they have, but the methods should be generally available for usage in these big providers. If you'd like to host it yourself, you also have options, and this is very much something I'm interested in. So what are these options? There are a couple of proxies like HA proxy or Nginx. The situation with Nginx is mixed. On one hand, the authors of JA4 are providing an official extension for the Nginx. Sounds great. However, this extension is marked as not ready to be used for production for some reasons, and it's in this state for several years now, stating that there are not enough resources to work on this with priority. So maybe. There is an unofficial extension for HA proxy that doesn't have these issues, apparently, maybe, perhaps, who knows. Moving on, we have the old school IDS, IPS systems and pickup parsers. As I've mentioned, there are issues with these. Another issue that we will run into shortly is that you really have to do some kind of deep inspection, some kind of decryption on that level, and setup is quite complex. And then there's encrypted client hello, which kind of kills the whole thing anyway. So I've decided not to do that, but there are some good solutions in here as well. And there are some completely random things, like there is a Go library that uses X509 fingerprinting. Out of all of the methods, it's just this one, so I guess somebody needed it. There is actually a list of these methods. The authors of this solution pay special attention to this list because of the licensing, which I'll cover shortly, but this list is surprisingly not complete. Do we have any fans of the Envoy proxy? Then I can just move on. Okay, so the licensing for these methods is not that simple because it's a split there. First of all, I am not a lawyer, so if you have these kind of questions, I'd recommend talking to somebody who knows more about this. Here's what I got from it. So the original JA4 method, which I'm talking about, the TLS fingerprint, is licensed with BSD3, which should permit all kinds of commercial use cases. So should be good to go. The rest of the suite has a special license, and here's how I interpret it. So the academic and internal business use is considered good, but monetization is considered bad, somewhat. The general idea, I think, is that you can secure your own assets, but you cannot sell protection. So if you are working for somebody and you are thinking, okay, we have a bot problem, let's develop on-site this new method, you could be good to go. But if you are intending to develop some kind of firewall to then resell to other, definitely you should get a license for this. So for example, Cloudflare should be definitely paying this company a license to use their methods on their edges. So what is the missing piece now? The database, right? What good are hashes if we don't have information about known assets? And I have more bad news, surprisingly. Up until quite recently, and the date I see here is April 8, 2026, and you can see that this is a web archive screenshot. The database for JA3, JA4 was publicly available. You could download the full database. It was like 32,000 entries. JSON, nicely parsable, ready to use. Yes, it has some issues, but still, it was there. But today, if you try to navigate to this side, you will be met with a sign-in field. And once again, I reached out, trying to ask for an access, create an account, to get access to the database, but no response again. And this makes me sad and a bit of angry, because the original database, they've claimed it's a community-driven effort, and I would tend to agree. People send it various JA4, JA3 fingerprints that they've observed in the wild to improve the knowledge and the data set and whatnot. And one day, the authors just decided that, no, we are taking it. We are taking it and putting it behind the login screen for unspecified reasons, I guess. So yeah, keep that in mind if you would like to progress with this technology further. And I know that I'm not perhaps talking always nicely about this, but the matter of the fact is I'm an independent guy, not affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form. So I can tell you what I think about it, because I'm not trying to sell you the solution. Oh well. So, JA4 in practice. I've went over and deployed JA4 on HA proxy, as mentioned with the Nginx extension, and I didn't want to mess with Envoy or some other thing. So it is quite simple to set up. The first thing you need to do is to load the extension. You download it, you put it in a well-defined folder, it's a Lua file. And if you think, oh no, Lua interpreted language, this is so slow, this will kill in production, it's really not that bad. It's actually quite good. Another order of business is to extend the SSL capture buffer size. So we need to capture the full client hello so that we are able to calculate this JA4 hash. The issue is there are some new ciphers that are quite big, such as the postpartum cryptographic key exchange ciphers, that really inflate the size of this. So the author of the extension recommends 192 bytes, but I've observed 3,000 bits long signature from these post-quantum methods. So yeah, some fine-tuning required. Then on the front end, we need to calculate it, simple as. And then we can do whatever with it. For example, you can set it in a custom header that can be sent downstream, or perhaps to some kind of middleware to perform some action based on the value. Or you can just put it into the logs, if you like. And again, you can put a user agent in the logs as well. So now we would have 3 good signals about the bots. You would have the IP address, you would have the user agent, and you will have the JA4 hash, all in one place without the need of doing some deep packet inspection, correlation, and all kinds of shenanigans. Right. So if you'd like to see the rest of the guide, perhaps if you want to deploy this on the HA proxy by yourself, here's the link. So the original motivation for all of this was to identify and block AI bots, because it's very modern and it's AI and it's fun and whatnot. So I have a blog, as you've probably noticed by now, and I didn't listen to my own advice because I was doing it quite quickly. So I was collecting PCAPs, and I was correlating the PCAPs with the logs. So yes, shame on me. I'm fixing this. There will be a follow-up eventually, one day, maybe. So yes, let's take a look at what is coming to my site. And what I really want to showcase today is the ChatGPT user, which is one of these AI bots. User agent goes like this. And the purpose of this bot is to read the articles based on the user request. So if the user asks, hey, here is this great article about deploying JA4 on HA proxy, please show me what I need to do with my config to enable it. The ChatGPT user will go fetch that resource to include it into the context. Okay, so what are the JA4 hashes? It's this one, and this one, and 2 more. Okay, this is not ideal. I would like to have a single hash for this bot, but we have 4. 4 is not that many. I can work with 4. So this is the one part. The other part we need to take a look at is to see if these hashes always identify this and this bot only. And I have more bad news. I found another user agent that is correlated with these hashes. But if you take a closer look, they are cousins of sorts. Both made by OpenAI, The second one is something called OpenAI search bot, which has a slightly different purpose. So this time the user asks, hey, I would like to deploy JA4 on my AJ proxy. Please find me some kind of reference and tutorial that I can follow. So then the search bot will go to the internet to try identify resources that will be applicable to use in the relevant context, to then include them in the results. So they are similar in the sense that both are user-initiated actions, even though they have some slightly different mechanics and semantics. So they are very, very related. That is good. Furthermore, if you take a closer look at these hashes, you will see the similarities in between them. So we have these fields which are the same, the TCP versions, because I'm not supporting anything else, only TCP, too bad. TLS 1.3, domains, 17 ciphers, various number of extensions, and all of them intend to talk to me with HTTP2. Okay. The second part of the hash is the same, indicating that not only we have the same number of cipher suites, but they are the exactly same cipher suites in each and every case. And then obviously, since we have a different number of the extensions, the last part has to be different. No way around it. The SAH 256 is quite good in this regard. Okay, so we would like to use this pattern to identify these bots, because there are obviously some variations. So can we do it? Almost. There is one additional value that throws a branch into this, one additional JA4 hash. So let's take a look at it. It actually belongs to a single user agent, and it's something called ShubBot. Okay. Moving forward, we will take a look at the IP addresses. So, do you know? You worked with this. All of these are GCP IP addresses, and you will see in the docs of the bot, if you will search for the user agent, that they are not that secretive about it. Yes, we will have this user agent, we will have these IP addresses that we will access your resources from. Here's how our bot behaves, approximately. And we can also see that they are also some kind of AI company, something. So catching this bot is in the spirit of the rule, somewhat. So in that sense, this is one of the better applications of JA4. Okay. As mentioned, these standards are moving on in time. They are improving, they are changing. So we can perhaps expect some changes to JA4 as well. And I have further updates for you from the author of the JA4. Don't read all of that. It basically says that, well, actually, we will no longer be publishing details and changes to JA4 because we realized that we are giving away our advantage. And I somewhat agree. Like, this is a hard cat and mouse game to play. And a thin layer of obscurity can go a long way in stopping some of the attackers. No need to help them. So if you are really serious about defending, there is really no good reason for telling them, hey, this is how our defense system works. Try to figure out how to bypass it. It's not the greatest practice to rely on it, but it surely helps a lot in practice. Okay. So yes, what about attackers? That was somewhat of the last piece of information that was missing. What can attackers do with this? So maybe I can ask my follow-up speakers, Andrei, Tomchi, what does the attacker do with this? Does the attacker do this? Would I catch you with JA4? No? Man, the audience today. So the reality is that the client has full control over the client hello. That means the attackers can mimic. And there are several solutions that you can use to veil a thin layer of JA4 randomization in it, the most famous probably being the Carl impersonate. So this is by no means an intractable problem for the attackers to solve. The only saving grace is that plenty of attackers are lazy, and they just sometimes don't do it. But yes, the option is definitely there. Like, this is not some kind of inampassable method. And I think this was also the motivation for what I talked about previously. Why would they publish? the method fully so that the attackers can learn how to adapt to various bits and pieces of info. So yes, let's sum it all up. So JA4 is definitely not a silver bullet. It's just not. By itself, it won't solve your problems. The clients can be updated, the schemes might change, new extensions might get introduced all the time into the mix. The attackers can mimic, they can try to trouble branch into the process one way or another. It's not even 100% consistent with itself. As we've seen, there was a single bot, but we've measured 4 different JA4 hashes, and the other way wasn't much better. The HashDB, I don't even know what to ask. It is somewhat available, it's sometimes not available. Maybe you can find the old version of the HashDB somehow. So I guess that it might be usable eventually. I'd still recommend keeping this tool under your belt, because there are some situations when having this kind of signal can really solve a lot of your problems. I remember investigating password spraying attacks, and the attacker was somewhat okay-ish in that sense that they were using many different IP addresses. They were randomizing user agents. All I seen was we have this one authentication endpoint. Each and every IP that did 10 requests in a row and then stopped. I'm like, this is a lot of requests. These are a lot of traffic. I really want to block them. Obviously, this is being done by one entity, but how do I prove it? And that's when I discovered JA3 and JA4, and I got lucky. And I got lucky that I was able to block this wave of attacks using this new and great method. So yeah, sometimes it can solve your issues quite easily. Thank you for the attention.